The armor. Many years ago, I was a trusted officer of a large principality. As per my nature, I stayed away from the factions within the state and focused solely on my duties. Like a judge, I didn't lose sleep over the city's affairs. In the palace, new spectacles were a regular occurrence. New conspiracies were constantly being hatched, but I had no connection with any of it. I interfered with no one, neither complaining about anyone nor praising them. Perhaps this was why the king favored me. The king was virtuous, kind, brave, generous, and somewhat willful. He didn't like flattering the resident, British officer, which was a rarity for princely states at the time. Newspapers that other states banned out of fear circulated freely in our principality. The resident had hinted once or twice regarding this leniency, but the king paid no heed. He did not want any interference in his internal affairs, which is why the resident harbored secret resentment toward him. However, this does not imply that the king was an ideal ruler, far from it. He was indulgent, pleasure-loving, and deeply flawed. Most of his time was consumed by his desires. His harem was filled with dozens of queens, yet new women would frequently enter. No expense was spared in this regard. Beauty had become his religion, and he was ready to sacrifice truth and honor for it. He wanted to remain free, and since the government tried to impose constraints, he openly exhibited enthusiasm for matters where he was confident of public support. For this reason, even the public viewed his vices as virtues, and the newspapers constantly praised his courage and love for the people. Recently, a Punjabi woman had entered the harem, and all sorts of rumors were spreading about her. Some said she was just a common prostitute, others an actress, and still others claimed she came from a respectable family. She wasn't particularly beautiful or alluring, yet the king was madly in love with her. His already scarce interest in state affairs had dwindled entirely, and now he was utterly enslaved to her charms. A new palace was being built for her, and every day, new gifts arrived. European decorations were ordered for her residence, and music and dance masters from Italy, France, and Germany were summoned to train her. Her fame spread throughout the state, and people wondered what it was about her that had captivated the king so thoroughly. One night, after dinner, I was summoned by the king. Immediately, I felt a sense of foreboding. Why would he call me at this hour? I wasn't one of his closest ministers, so I feared something must be wrong. In princely states, such incidents were common. One moment, someone could be seen seated beside the king, and by evening, they could be fleeing for their life. I wondered if someone had made a complaint against me. Remaining neutral in such places can be dangerous. A person without enemies also lacks friends. I quickly dressed and, with various troubling thoughts swirling in my mind, presented myself to the king. But at the very first glance, all my fears were dispelled. The king's face reflected sorrow rather than anger. His eyes held an odd plea. As soon as he saw me, he motioned for me to sit and asked, "Tell me, Sardar Sahib, have you ever been in love? Have you ever lost yourself in love?" I immediately understood that formalities were not needed here. The king sought personal counsel. Speaking frankly, I replied, "No, my lord, I've never been caught in that web." The king offered me his beetle box and said, "You're fortunate then. It's good that you never fell into this trap. It's a golden web that dazzles the eyes, a sweet but deadly poison, a beautiful melody that pleases the ears but shatters the heart. It's an illusion, a mirage that leads a man to lose not only his life but also his dignity." He poured himself a glass of wine, took a sip, and continued, "Do you know the hardships I've endured for this woman? I could place my head at her feet at a mere glance from her, offer her this entire kingdom. With these very hands, I've spread her bed, filled her hookah, and swept her room. When she stepped off her bed, I straightened her slippers. You can't imagine the joy I felt in serving her. Before her, I would forget my power and princely pride, and in her service, I found a kingdom greater than all three worlds. But this cruel woman has always ignored me. Maybe she doesn't think I'm worthy of her. I've always dreamed of her smiling at me, even just once, with those enchanting eyes and lips. I thought perhaps she was meant to be worshipped, not loved, that she was unaware of such feelings. I consoled my heart with the hope that someday she would fulfill my wishes, that her sleeping imagination would awaken to my love. The king suddenly fell silent. He stared at his wine glass for a while and then spoke calmly. I'm not so unattractive that a woman would despise me. The king was indeed a handsome man, tall, with a strong build and a complexion like that of an apple. His face radiated an inner strength. I said confidently, my lord, nature has indeed been generous to you in this regard. A faint, sad smile crossed the king's face, but soon the melancholy returned. Sardar Sahib, I've explored this world fully. I know all the charms and seductions, but none of the tricks I've used to win women in the past have worked this time. In the end, I concluded that the well is dry, it simply can't quench my thirst. But alas, yesterday, I discovered the cruel reason behind her indifference. Oh, how I wish this secret had remained hidden from me for just a little while longer. The king's sorrowful face suddenly hardened, and a fierce fire flickered in his cold eyes. Look at these letters, he said, handing me a bundle of papers. These fell into my hands in secret yesterday. I won't waste time trying to figure out who sent them to me or where they came from. Clearly, someone with ill intentions toward Sarfaraz must have delivered them. My only concern now is whether these letters are genuine. I have no doubt they are real. I've seen Sarfaraz's handwriting, and I am familiar with her style of speaking. These letters are written in her hand. What a horrifying situation. Here I am, yearning for a smile, for a single sweet gesture from her, while she writes love letters to others, pouring out her longing for them. I've read these letters, Sardar Sahib, with a heart as cold as stone. I've swallowed my rage, torn myself apart, and shed blood from my eyes. The king's voice trembled with anger and pain. Betrayal. This is the treachery unfolding within my own palace, trampling over my desires and hopes. Not even a drop of bitter water for me, but nectar rains upon someone else. No morsel of bread for me, but a feast of delicacies for another. You can't imagine what I went through reading these letters. The first impulse that rose in my heart was to grab a sword and plunge it into my chest before her very eyes. To die right there at her feet. Maybe then she would value my love, maybe the sight of my blood would soften her heart. But from deep within me came a voice: this would be sheer foolishness. You'll die, and this heartless woman will mock your foolishness and move on to her lover the next day. They will both enjoy the wealth you've left behind, and your soul will be left in torment. Sardar Sahib, believe me, this voice came from within my heart. I immediately sheathed my sword. The thought of suicide disappeared, and in an instant, the burning desire for revenge flared up. Every fiber of my being was inflamed with a deep, inner fire. I was consumed with the thought of ending her deceitful game right then and there. Those eyes that I once would have given my life for, I now wanted to blind forever. Those venomous lips, I wanted to silence forever. That heart, filled with cruelty and deceit, I wanted to tear apart and trample underfoot. Blood raged in my head, and Sarfaraz's beauty, charm, and elegance seemed to lose all value. At that moment, if someone had told me Sarfaraz had been killed, I would have kissed the murderer's feet. If I had heard she was dying, I would have watched her death with delight. Resolute in my decision, I strapped 2 swords to my waist and entered her room. The door I once approached with trembling hope now filled me with the thrill of a hunter closing in on his prey. But, Sardar Sahib, as soon as I stepped inside and saw her lying there in a deep, peaceful sleep, a strange pity filled my heart. Yes, all my rage and anger vanished in an instant. What crime has she committed, I thought? This question suddenly appeared in my mind. What crime is she guilty of? If she's committed the same sin that I am about to commit, then what right do I have to seek revenge? If she is as desperate, as restless, as consumed by love for her beloved as I am, then what fault is hers? Just as I am compelled by my heart, is she not compelled by hers? If someone forced me to forget my love and turn to another, could I? No, I would flee at the first opportunity. This is my injustice. If I possessed the qualities that her unknown lover does, wouldn't she be drawn to me? I lack the traits needed to win her heart completely. If I dislike something bitter, I will naturally seek out the sweet shop. Perhaps, over time, my taste will change, and I will begin to appreciate bitter things. But no one can force me to consume something bitter at the point of a sword. These thoughts defeated me. The face that moments ago filled me with rage now seemed 100 times more beautiful. Until that moment, I had never seen her in such a tranquil state, and in her sleep, she appeared even more flawless and pure. When awake, my eyes would shift from her lips to her cheeks to her eyes, but in her sleep, her beauty radiated in its full splendor. It was as if a lamp was glowing within her. The king took another sip of his drink and continued, Sardar Sahib, my anger subsided. One cannot hate someone they truly love, no matter how unjust they may be. Where there is love, and a lover kills their beloved, understand that it was never love, only lust. I left her room, but my heart has found no peace since. I've tried to suppress my rage with all my might, but I've failed. As long as that devil lives, a thorn will prick my side, a snake will coil around my heart. He is the one standing between me and Sarfaraz, the black snake guarding the treasure. His head must be crushed. Until I see his shattered remains, my soul will not rest. I don't care about the consequences, whatever happens, I'll only be satisfied once that demon is sent to hell. The king fixed his eyes on me and said, Tell me, can you help me? I was taken aback. Me? Yes, you, the king encouraged me. Do you know why I chose you out of all the people? Why I'm asking for this favor from you? There are many men here who would tear that scoundrel to pieces on my command, who would bathe the streets in his blood. With a mere gesture, I could have his bones crushed, have nails driven into his eyes, but I chose you. Do you know why? Because I trust you. I trust you more than I trust even my closest men. I know that this secret will remain as safe with you as it is with me. I know that not even the greatest temptations could sway you. Even the most brutal tortures wouldn't force your lips open. You won't betray me. You won't deceive me. You won't exploit this opportunity. Do you know what the reward will be for this? Don't worry about that. Whatever prize you desire will be yours. Power, land, wealth, honor, whatever you want will be given to you. You'll have full authority over everything. No one will interfere. You'll be free to fulfill all your ambitions. You'll write the orders, and I'll sign them without question. So, tell me, when can you go? His name and location are written on this paper. Engrave it on your heart, then tear up the paper. You can see how much I'm trusting you with. My reputation, my life, it's all in your hands. I trust that you'll handle this matter with the utmost intelligence, caution, and patience. A single careless word, a moment's hesitation, any lapse in judgment, and both our lives are at stake. The enemy is lying in wait. One wrong move and we're both doomed. If this secret is revealed, you know what the consequences will be. I'll be exiled to Burma, the principality will fall into foreign hands, and my life will be destroyed. I want you to leave tonight. Here's an imperial bank checkbook with signed checks. Take as much money as you need. My head spun with excitement. Now I understood the power of temptation to corrupt even the most honest man. It was as if I were intoxicated. I remembered reading somewhere that every man is given the opportunity to shape his own destiny, but only once. The man who seizes that opportunity with both hands is a true man, while the one who hesitates and lets it slip away is a coward. One gains wealth, fame, and glory, while the other spends his life in regret, shame, and misery. You only have a moment to decide, but that moment is priceless. This was that moment in my life. I decided to seize it with both hands. Luck had presented itself to me on a silver platter, offering all the riches men live and die for. If I passed it up, I'd be the most unfortunate man alive. Sure, the task came with risks, but look at the reward. You don't find pearls without diving into the sea. If you sit idly on the shore, all you'll find are shells and pebbles. Yes, my hands would be stained with innocent blood. But so what? Sacrifices are necessary for rewards. The world is a battlefield, and to reach the summit of success, you must climb over corpses. Victory can only be achieved by wading through rivers of blood. Look at history, all great men have waded through blood to reach their goals. Bloodshed is the mark of the brave. Cowards fear blood. A man of action focuses on his goal, not the path. He keeps his eyes on the peak, not the obstacles along the way. I stood up and said, I am ready to serve. The king looked at me with pride and said, I expected nothing less. Do you believe you can accomplish this task? I am confident, I replied. So am I. Keep me updated on your progress. Rest assured, my lord, you will have no reason to complain. Don't invoke God's name for this. God isn't needed in situations like this. Call upon him only when your heart grows weak. If your arms are strong, your mind is sharp, and your courage is firm, why rely on God? Now go, and return victorious. All eyes will be on you. I pushed aside all thoughts of conscience. What right did this scoundrel have to maintain such a despicable relationship with Sarfaraz when he knew the king had taken her into his harem? This was almost as heinous as abducting a married woman. Sarfaraz was, in a sense, married, and maintaining such a relationship with her was unforgivable. A crime so severe deserved the harshest punishment. If I had harbored any doubts or hesitation before, this reasoning dispelled them. The conviction of truth is the mantra of courage. Now, that blood was no longer a sinful murder but a justified killing. Turning away from it would be an act of cowardice. The train wasn't leaving for another 2 hours. It was an overnight journey, but I had no appetite. I began preparing for the trip, bought a fake beard from the market, packed 2 revolvers, and then pondered whom I should take with me. Taking someone from here would be against protocol. Should I send a telegram to my brother? No, why drag him into this? There's no shortage of skilled men in Bombay. A bribe of 100,000 rupees will get the job done. There are plenty of professionals there, men who could kill an angel if you asked. The plan would be to lure this man into a prostitute's room and finish him there, or, while he's walking along the seashore, kill him and dispose of his body in the ocean. Still having some time to spare, I thought I'd perform my evening prayers. As I stepped into the prayer room, my eyes fell on my mother's portrait, a tricolor image. I'm not a religious man, and I'm not particularly drawn to rituals. I don't even observe fasts. Yet, for some reason, whenever I look at that portrait, I feel a light within my soul. Her eyes still seem to radiate that same loving glow, the same divine blessing that filled my heart with warmth in my childhood. To me, that image isn't just a picture, it's a living presence that gave me life and still sustains me. When I saw it today, I was startled, as if someone had caught me stealing. I looked at that picture countless times every day, but never before had I felt the way I did now. Shame and anger washed over me as if it was saying, I never expected this from you. I couldn't bear to look at it. I lowered my eyes in shame. I didn't have the courage to stand before that image. Those eyes weren't just painted, they were alive, intense, burning, piercing my soul like sharp spears. I felt as if I would collapse. I sank to the floor, my head bowed. Without knowing how, as if guided by some divine inspiration, my resolve underwent a sudden transformation. That embodiment of truth, that image of light, awakened my soul. What thoughts filled my mind, what emotions surged within me, I can't say. I only know that I left the house in a daze, summoned a car, and arrived at the king's palace by 10 p.m. Special instructions had been given that I could meet him at any time. No obstacles were in my way. I approached the king with humility and said, My lord, I have something to confess. The king, who had been enjoying a rare moment of peace after resolving his dilemma, sensed trouble. His brows furrowed, but in an instant, he regained his composure and smiled. Yes, what is it? Anything important? Gathering my courage, I said, Forgive me, my lord, but I cannot carry out this task. The king's face turned pale. He stared at me in disbelief. What do you mean? I cannot do this, I replied. Why not? I lack the strength. The king looked at me with mocking eyes. Perhaps your conscience has awakened, The same affliction that strikes cowards and weaklings. Very well, leave. My lord, please don't be angry. The king's eyes blazed like fire as he roared, Enough. Get out. Then, softening slightly, he added, Your fate is to wander through life aimlessly. I gave you the opportunity of a lifetime. one that any other man would have seen as a divine blessing, but you squandered it. You were destined to live a life of slavery, always bowing and scraping before others. Men like you belong in monks' robes, begging with a staff and bowl in hand, pondering the mysteries of right and wrong from the seclusion of a cave. This world belongs to men of courage. I regretted not refusing from the start. After a moment's pause, the king added, "You still have time. Think it over." Without hesitation, I replied, "My lord, I've made up my mind." The king bit his lip in frustration and said, "Fine. Leave now and make sure you're out of my kingdom by morning. You may not get another chance tomorrow. I don't know why I'm sparing your life. Something deep within me is protecting you. I'm not in control of myself right now, but I trust your integrity. I still believe you'll keep this matter as secret as the grave." I left quietly and, by dawn, had crossed the kingdom's border into British territory. The only thing I took with me was that portrait. As the sun rose in the east, I crossed the principality's western boundary. Story ended. How did you like it? Please comment, like, or dislike. Share with your friends. Subscribe to the channel. Thank you.